He got busted at Burbank Airport for drugs, going through the metal detector. He had, hypodermic needles that would set off the metal detector. It was mushrooms, pot, and coke. Puts it on the carry-on luggage, and he gets busted. This guy got 6 monkeys on the plane. How come Aaron Sorkin couldn't get his magic mushrooms on the plane, and this guy's got 6 chimps? Oh, boy, that's a bad crime. All right, and another smuggling story. A Malaysian truck driver will spend a year in jail for smuggling more than 5,000 kilograms, that's 11,000 pounds, of pig intestines into Singapore. Singapore has seen 11 cases of meat smuggling since it banned Malaysian pork in March 1999. Now, you can't believe this name. This is a name that will just completely... Maybe this name in Singapore, in Thailand, is as common as, like, Joe Blow. But I'm going to spell this for you. This is the guy's name. S-U-P-E-R, that we can handle, super, A-M-A-N-I-A-M. That's his first name. And his last name is M-U-N-I-S-A-M-Y. The guy's name is an eye chart. Okay, he's 45 years old. He was fined $30,000, which is about 30,000, whatever the hell they use for money over there. They might use pig intestines for all I know. 16,500 U.S. on Wednesday. And his truck was loaded with pig intestines as well as pork, mutton, and beef. And he had a permit to import aluminum panels and galvanized steel brackets. Oh, no, that's aluminum. I know it looks like pig intestines, but that's really just aluminum. Piping. You see the speed wrap there. Oh, boy. I could just see this guy. Here's another guy who's not going to do well in jail. And go, all right, get out of the truck. Put your hands up. Throw out the pig intestines and come out with your hands up. I can just see this guy in prison. What are you in for? I killed my family. What are you in for? I knocked off a bank. How about you? Guy whose name can't be pronounced. I had a truckload of pig intestines. I was trying to pass it off as aluminum products. Oh, boy. And another bizarre story here. How about this? A vegetarian lawyer, and you know who's going to love this story. This is up in Seattle. A vegetarian lawyer is claiming millions of dollars in damages from McDonald's Corporation, accusing the fast food company in a lawsuit of secretly lacing its French fries with beef fat. Citing an email in which the Oak Brook, Illinois company discloses its suppliers use tiny amounts of beef flavoring, the suit charges McDonald's with fraudulent claims for saying its fries have been cooked in pure vegetable oil. We will seek injunctive relief to stop this practice, and we are seeking damages, including punitive damages, that will easily be in the hundreds of millions of dollars, said Harish Bharati, who filed the class action suit in King County Superior Court on Tuesday. A McDonald's spokesman said the restaurant chain had never claimed to offer vegetarian food and that it freely provides ingredient information to anyone who requests it. Stressing all its food products are approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, spokesman Walter Riker said McDonald's fries contain minuscule amounts of beef products, not the beef fat alleged by the lawsuit. Look, anybody who's ever worked in a McDonald's knows that you'd be lucky if the only thing in that fry oil is beef fat. I mean, sometimes it's the guy's wristwatch. It could be, his high school pin. It could be a lot worse than beef fat, folks. So be grateful if that's all you get in your fry oil. Anyway, that's another suit, and they want hundreds of millions of dollars from McDonald's because they have it. A California company is recalling about 10,000 scuba jackets designed to prevent divers from floating to the surface because the jackets could put them in danger of drowning. Now, I could see why you might want to recall that. Let's see. You've built a jacket for scuba divers that's purpose is to bring them up to the surface in the event of an emergency. But the jackets may cause drowning. There could be a problem with that. That's like building an airplane that bores through the earth. It's like, that's not the purpose. It's doing the exact opposite of what it's supposed to be doing. And we'll end with this, folks. We followed this story when it first broke in L.A. A judge has dismissed, remember this story about this guy? He was a magician. He got pulled over for DUI, and he blew the breath test, and it went right through the roof, with the alcohol content. And he said, no, I'm a magician. And you see, I do this fire-breathing thing, and it's the fire-eating part of my act. I have to drink the fluid, and that's what it really was. I wasn't drunk. Well, guess what? He carried the day. American justice lives. A judge has dismissed a drunk driving charge against a magician who claims his fire-eating act caused a false reading on his breath test. Los Angeles Superior Court Judge John Doyle threw out the misdemeanor charge yesterday. Prosecutors are asking to retry Randall Rickman. Rickman's 9-day trial ended last week with the jury deadlocked 10-2 in favor of acquittal. He testified that he had just taught a fire-eating class when police pulled him over on December 7, 1999. His blood alcohol reading registered a 0.08%, twice the legal driving limit. Now, there's so much wrong with this story. First of all, why did it take 9 days for this trial? Okay, number one. And who is going to a fire-eating class? And I wonder if you can get tuition, you can get a scholarship for that. Well, Dad, I'm not really a magician, but I'm just a fire-eating major. Now, can you imagine that, being in that? Actually, the other question, too, is, since they want to retry this, I wonder, since this guy's a magician, or claims to be, if he might possibly have hypnotized Judge John Doyle, who threw out the misdemeanor charges. They can do that, magicians. They're very powerful people. Anyway, I want to hypnotize all of you to pick up the phone and dial 1-800-222-KABC. We're going to take our quick break. When we come back, we'll get into the serious stuff, and there's lots of issues we can talk about, as always. And we're going to talk with Ken in Long Beach, who's a first-time caller. He wants to talk about the standard of living, and I want to talk about why, in God's name, are Americans working as hard as we are. And why are we doing this? We're driving ourselves nuts, I think. 1-800-222-KABC. My name is Doug McIntyre. This show is called Red Eye Radio Flight 790. This station is called Talk Radio 790 KABC. And the guy who does the news and traffic, what's his name? God, I had it on the top of my head.
Steve Kelly.
I'm number one, right? I'm the number one finger.
Yes, you are.
Yes. Burbank, we've got a problem on the 5.
From Long Beach to Lancaster. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the voice of Southern California.
Alvarado street dance, Latin lovers romance, could be love at first glance, L.A. late at night, cruising by the Ajax, listening to some sweet sax, these are just the cool facts, L.A. late at night.
Oh, it is late at night.
Anytime you want to, you can
It's 2:21. Let's call it 2:22 just in the interest of accuracy. I'm Doug McIntyre, piloting Red Eye Radio. Right here at Talk Radio 790 KABC. Our number is 1-800-222-KABC. Give us a ring, folks. We got lots of lines open, 5 of them to be exact. We'd love to hear from you tonight, especially if you've never called the show before. We'd like to hear from new people, new voices, new opinions on any subject that's of interest to you. If you saw the Survivor thing tonight, if you're sick of it all, I really am, I got to say. And I know I am definitely biased here, because the more of that kind of crappy stuff that's on TV, the less work there is for guys like me. And speaking of work, ABC News has been running a week-long series, I guess, on the work habits of Americans. And we are working ourselves to an early grave in the pursuit of staying ahead, of keeping up with a lifestyle that I think is actually unnecessary. We want this stuff. We want big screen TVs, and we're missing out on life for it. Because we work. Why are we doing it? Is there a reason why we're doing it? I remember years ago, the Japanese have had this reputation for years. And this is an honest-to-God true story. It's 16 years ago. I was still working for a Japanese ad agency in New York when I heard this, because it just made me laugh. In Japan, they were having so many problems, social problems, growing out from the amount of time that people were spending at work, obsessed with work. The divorce rate was increasing, the alcoholism was increasing, the heart attacks were increasing, stress-related anxiety disorders, all this stuff was increasing because the Japanese workers were working, and that's all they were doing. So the government of Japan formed a commission to study the problem and come up with solutions to encourage, campaigns and whatnot, to encourage the Japanese workers to take time off, to chill, to take your sick days, to take your vacation days, and to go home at a reasonable hour. And after a couple of months, they found out that the committee that they had formed to tell people to relax was averaging 17 hours a day to get out the word to relax. They were completely committed to getting out the word that the Japanese workers have to relax more, and they were putting in 17-hour days to do it. Well, it seems like that's what we're doing. I mean, you drive around here in L.A. and look at rush hour. Rush hour doesn't end at 7. It's still going on at 9:30 at night. At 9:30 at night, the freeways are packed, people coming home from work. And I saw this in New York. The number of times there were guys and women and, business people running to catch the 10:20 train p.m. to go home at night, and they've been there since 7. And you figure they got another hour on the train. They don't see their kids. They don't see anything. Why are we doing this? I'm asking myself this. Because I've been working 18, 20 hours a day now, including a lot of weekends. So what are we doing this for? Well, in my case, I know why I'm doing it. I was out of work. Now I'm trying to get out of debt. So I have the opportunity. These jobs come up infrequently. You take them when you can. But why are most of us doing it? And I really do believe that in a lot of cases it's because this is the downside. I'm pro-capitalism. I'm an American. I believe in, you should go out and make a buck and spend it on what you want. But there is a downside to everything. There's an upside and a downside to everything. And the downside of capitalism is materialism. And we must have, we have been sold that if we don't have the brand new Buick in the driveway, if we don't have the latest piece of electronic equipment, you had the Pentium 3, that's not good enough because here comes Pentium 4. And we was talking to Oscar before the show, and he was talking about moving his music collection over to MP3 files. I don't even know what that is. I have no idea what an MP3 file is. But I have got some songs, especially since I listen to older music. I've got it on 45s, 33s. I confess that there was a time when I did own some 8-tracks, cassette tapes, CDs, and now I'm supposed to be moving on to to MP3 files, whatever the hell they are. It's the same song. I must have Summer Wind in 18 different formats. I mean, I'm surprised I don't have it on an Edison cylinder. It was old enough. And there's probably some people out there who have those too. But we have to have the latest, the new and improved, the latest the thing. And if you feel like if you don't have the newest thing, that you're somehow a lesser person. And what are we doing? We're missing out on life. I realize nothing fun happened in my life today. Normally, when you're knocking around in the course of the day, you can have some laughs, you see something stupid. But when you're racing at 80 miles an hour, running on the treadmill just to stay ahead of the runaway freight train that is your life, there's no time to enjoy anything. I mean, it was a beautiful day out today. It had to be pointed out to me. It was beautiful out. And the only time I saw it was about 7:30, and I was sitting on the hood of my car, which is filthy, by the way, because I haven't had time to wash it. And just sat there for a minute and said, something, this is a beautiful day, and I missed it. I missed all of it. And I'm lucky, I don't have kids. But there's people out there, mothers and fathers, who don't get to see their kids. And the kids don't get to see the parents, and the kids are busy. The kids not only got school and homework, but they got play dates, and they got, t-ball and classes and, all kinds of stuff. We are busy, and so much of it is unnecessary. And I'm sorry, I lay it back on these computers. I'm becoming a Luddite. I'm becoming Ira. I'm becoming Ira Fistel. Because all it's done is it's picked up the pace of life without improving the quality of life. It just makes it possible. The pagers, the fax machines, the beepers, the cell phones, all this stuff just makes it possible for you to work anywhere, anytime. And I'm wondering if it's worth it. What's your reaction to that? Are you one of those people that you're probably at work right now? I guarantee you that I'm talking to a lot of people who are at work right now. And they're up at 2:30 in the morning on a Friday, hacking away to bring home the bacon or to bring home the soybeans if you're a vegetarian. Have you ever just sat back and wondered, is this worth it? What are we doing it for? So that we can have a new, a new leather sofa? So that we could have a new, SUV that's got a pop-out camping tent that we'll use once? I don't know. Maybe it is worth it. Some people want that stuff. That's fine. Hey, listen, if you want it and you're getting it honestly, cool. I have no problem with that. Just that at what cost? Let's go ahead and talk to Ken in Long Beach. Ken, good morning. How are you?
Oh, good morning. Yeah, this is the first time I've called. I've called Mr. KABC a lot, but it's the first time I've, given a try calling this time of the night. Just thought I'd check it out here. And
well, I appreciate that.
All the hours people work and everything like that. It seems to me the standard of living isn't going up. It's going down. It's been falling for most people for at least the last 20, 25 years.
Well, let's define terms.
Hourly wage. Okay. The stock market I know has gone up from 1,000 just in 1983 to what is it, 10,000?
Yeah,
today?
it broke they said that it would never break the $10,000 barrier when I was a kid.
Yeah, but very few people. I mean, a lot of people own stock. That's true, but about 94% of the stock's owned by 1% of the people. Okay.
Although, are those numbers still? Because I know a lot more people are in the market today than...
A lot of people are in the market, but they own very little.
Yeah, that's true. I own none.
They own almost nothing.
My savings plan is the sofa cushions.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, that's where I keep all my excess cash.
And the carrots.
Yeah.
That's the supermarket. But
you know where I think the standard of living has gone down, Ken, and I agree with you.
For most people. Now, if you're very rich, it's gone up.
Well, yeah. Well, for the very rich, it doesn't make any difference. It always goes up.
Well, they've shot way up.
But
you have super rich today.
I think that where the standard of living has decreased is in the middle class, in this sense, that in order to have what is considered to be a normal, sort of average existence today, it requires two people to work.
Oh yeah.
As opposed to in the 50s, one person worked. The dad worked or. Mom stayed home, and that you could support a middle-class lifestyle on one salary. Today, two have to do that.
Yeah, well, probably you've got to send the kid out to McDonald's to do a shift,
Well, but here's the thing, Ken, and this is my problem. I think we expect so much more than we did in the 50s and early 60s. Just look at...
We don't make anything anymore. We're not a producing nation. We're the world's sponge.
No, that's not really true. What we make is different. We make different things.
Well, I challenged Mr. KABC to what do we send to China, okay? He couldn't think of one thing. What manufactured good? Okay.
No, we send electronics. We send high tech. Let's put it that. We send computer technology.
We send technology, but we don't actually make the stuff. We maybe license the stuff, and they make it over there.
Well, that's fine, but the thing is
He
that.
said, well, how about Coca-Cola? I thought he thinks they send Coca-Cola ships over there or something.
No, we don't.
Maybe they license it. Yeah, I'm sure they bottle it over there.
Yeah, but that's. I don't think that's the issue.
But that doesn't help the American people. That helps American corporations, Doug.
Well, that helps.
The company stock goes way up.
All right.
And we don't get any jobs.
We have very low unemployment in this country.
Yeah, but the jobs don't pay anything. That's true.
Yeah, but those jobs don't pay any. But the jobs that have been exported overseas aren't paying anything either.
Well, the jobs that have been exported used to pay.
Yes, but the thing is that that's like saying that let's bring back harpsichord music. That ship has sailed. There's nothing that can be done about that.
We could forget about this free trade stuff to start with.
Well, then,
I believe in free trade with Canada. Okay, I can understand that. Or look at the Europeans. They have free trade, but it's with equal countries. You don't make free trade with Bolivia and Chile and then take Boeing and fire everybody and send the factory down there. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I agree in this regard. I think
it's good paying jobs.
Okay. I think yes, and there's things that we could have done. For instance, the city of Burbank lost McDonnell Douglas. No, wait a second. It was Lockheed.
Is that right?
Yeah, they lost Lockheed to Marietta, Georgia. I mean, the competition is within the states. Yeah, all right, but there's this is the way it is, and the bottom line is that the unemployment is low in the United States, and most people are doing well. It's just that they are doing well. They are doing well, but
a falling standard of living.
You see, this is where I disagree, Ken.
The standard of living should go up.
Would you please let me make the point?
Not down.
Let me make the point. We want more. We expect more. We want big screen TVs. The size of houses alone has changed. Go up into Burbank, into North Hollywood, and look at the houses that were built there in 1941 to house aircraft workers during World War II. They were 930 square feet, 2 bedrooms, floor furnished, 1 bath, and people raised families in them. And now the average American home is 3,500 square feet, and there's all kinds of ports and electronic stuff all built into it because we expect more.
For the rich.
No, that's middle class.
$4 million house.
I'm not talking about $1 million house, Ken. I'm not talking about $1 million house. I'm talking about an average Kaufman Broad prefab house.
Those are $500,000.
No, they're not a $500,000.
Well, all I know is most young people could afford to buy a house in their 20s or in their 20s. Today, I know very few people that could afford. They could barely afford.
Not in L.A. That's true. L.A. and New York and Boston, very expensive places.
What kids can afford is to buy these cars. They seem to all be going on.
Well, like I said, they're driving around in beautiful automobile, brand new, showroom new. When I was 20 years old, I drove a '64 Chevy, and now you see kids driving around in brand new cars. Why is that? They're working hard because they want the stuff.
Yeah, but they can't buy. Well, they can't buy a house, so they buy a car.
Well, they could buy a house if they didn't buy the car. In other words, if you don't buy the new car, that's the biggest loss you possibly can do, is going out buying a new car, you drive it off the lot, you take a $5,000 loss the second the wheels hit the pavement. And the thing is, what it is we want all the stuff. We want the stuff.
I'll tell you what we can do, Doug. First of all, let's not have this free trade stuff. Only countries equal. Let's do it with Canada. I thought that was fine. Free trade with Mexico, forget it.
Well,
no way.
Well, it's short-sighted for us not to trade with Mexico. It's short-sighted.
I never said don't trade.
Okay,
no,
listen.
You could buy foreign imports.
Ken, I have to stop here now, but please call me again, okay? All right, we'll get into this again on another night. Call me again, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, let's go to the break. When we come back, we'll talk to Mark in West L.A. My name is Doug McIntyre. This is Talk Radio 790 KBC, Red Eye Radio Flight 790. And here's Steve Kelly.
Good morning, Doug. Good morning, everybody. 11 people in Los Angeles under arrest on charges of smuggling illegal aliens into the U.S. Those raids took place on Thursday. FBI officials say each illegal immigrant paid an average of $7,000 to be smuggled into the country. Broadcast reports say the ringleader was a 49-year-old Los Angeles mother and her 2 daughters. It's been more than 1,000 years since the Pope has visited Greece. Pope John Paul II has changed that as he arrives in Athens. The 6-day trip also includes stops in Syria and Malta. A case of alleged corporate espionage has led to charges against 3 New Jersey men. The trio includes 2 Chinese scientists working for Lucent Technologies and a man described as their business partner. They're accused of stealing product designs, passing them to a Chinese government-owned company in Beijing. KBC News Time is 2:35. And here's the ABC 7 Dallas Range forecast for you. We've got partly cloudy skies this morning in most areas. Some clear skies out there as well. Overnight lows dipping into the 50s. Now for today, it's going to be beautiful. Lots of sunshine, a bit windy at times. Very warm. Highs should top out in the mid-70s in the basin. Mid to upper 80s in the warmer inland valleys, and we should get a cooling trend as we head towards the weekend. Right now, we've got partly cloudy skies, 54 degrees Newport Beach, mostly clear, and 56 degrees in downtown L.A. Here's the traffic watch for your morning drive. We've got a problem right now working in Indio 10 eastbound on the Jackson Street off-ramp. It's a vehicle fire. Actually, it's a big rig on fire, now clearing to the right shoulder. Beaumont 10 westbound at the 60, a disabled rig now partially blocking the far right lane. And at East L.A., 5 freeway northbound as you make your way to the 10, we've got a problem. It's a object in the roadway. CHP really not telling us what it is, but it is bigger than Red Box, and it's in the number 2 lane. Traffic brought to you by Preparation H. Cool it fast with Preparation H Cooling Gel. It cools on contact for fast relief. Preparation H Cooling Gel. I'm Steve Kelly, Talk Radio 790 KBC.
I need to sell my house fast. I'm losing sleep over it. Last night when I finally did fall asleep, I had this crazy dream. I dreamt I sold my house in a day. I didn't pay a broker commission. I got a good price for it, and yet I didn't have to move out either.
That's not crazy. It's a solution. Available now if you need to sell your home quickly. Call Relantis toll-free at 1-866-RELANTIS and check out our Sell and Stay program. Here's how it works. Give us your address, and in 1 hour, we'll call you back with a purchase offer. We can close the deal in cash, and you can stay in your home for up to a year.
If I could get out from under these house payments, that would be a dream come true.
Quit dreaming. Sell your home and stay in it, too. Call 1-866-RELANTIS or log on to Relantis.com. There's no cost or obligation. That's 1-866-RELANTIS. Call today. Make a deal tomorrow. Relantis Corporation is licensed under the California Department of Real Estate.
Diamonds. The Jewelry Exchange is a direct diamond importer and has thousands of diamonds, most with GIA or EGL certs, laser inscribed for your protection and guaranteed the lowest price. We have a huge quantity of half-carat to 5-carat sizes, including D Flawless and Ideal makes. 1-carat solitaires are $5.99. 1-carat studs are $3.99. Most of our jewelry is made in our state-of-the-art factory, and most repairs are done while you wait and watch. No one beats our prices. Compare Tiffany's 1-carat platinum bands for $5,800 with the Jewelry Exchanges for $1,500, a savings of 75%. 1-carat hearts are $199. 2-carat tennis bracelets $349. Only the Jewelry Exchange guarantees all the jewelry they make up to $3,000 to appraise for at least double. Some restrictions apply. For the best service, selection, and price, buy Factory Direct and Save. The Jewelry Exchange in Tustin, 714-542-9000. That's the Jewelry Exchange in Tustin, 714-542-9000.
What a divine aroma.
Yes. Could that be rutabaga quiche?
Smells like pan-blackened sardines to me. Well, guess again.
Let me introduce you to a dish that's mighty fine. It's featured on the menu wherever gourmets dine. For breakfast, lunch, or supper, it always hits the spot. It's easy to prepare. Just throw it in the pot. You cook it for an hour. You baste it with some gin. You serve it with potatoes. You're ready to begin. Your mama will adore it. The kids will cry for more. When the neighbors smell it cooking, they'll be breaking down the door. Boiled out, boiled out. We all want some boiled out. Boiled out, boiled out. We all want some boiled out.
All right, boiled owls and swell eggs. This is Red Eye Radio, Flight 790, right here at Talk Radio 790 KABC. I'm Doug McIntyre, piloting the old Red Eye flight till 6 in the morning. Our telephone number is 1-800-222-KABC. Ring them up, folks. We got 4 lines open. We'd be happy to talk to you tonight about anything that's on your mind. Work's on my mind tonight. I'm looking at this big series that ABC News is running. You can get it at the ABC News website, by the way. For most hardworking Americans, the benefits of overachievement or just plain overwork are obvious. The never-ending workday puts the kids through school, buys the dream house, builds the ego, and pads the wallet. But are we paying a price for our workaholic ways? Physicians, psychologists, theologians, sociologists, public policy experts, and life management coaches agree that our hyper-work culture is costing us. Consider this. Although we are the wealthiest people ever, we also happen to be the fattest to walk the planet. A direct link from our sedentary work culture to the deadly obesity epidemic is tough to prove, but experts say that there's no denying that spending our days sitting at a desk, in a car, on a train, or in front of the TV must contribute to our growing fatness. Then there's the emotional and psychological damage. Therapists say their workaholic clients bemoan an all-encompassing work life and lack of companionship, difficulty keeping friends, and a general sense of isolation. With work as the dominant force in our lives, it's tough to find time for family, friends, and community. Perhaps worse for our psyches, some experts say, we are finding it tough to do things for ourselves, including sleep or just doing things we like to do, such as playing guitar or dancing or just sitting in a park watching birds. And, you know, we've got all of the problems with, kids, that the kids barely see their parents and the parents barely know what they almost have to make an appointment with their own children to find out what's going on in their lives. And why are we doing this? Now, you know, Ken, our first caller, was talking about a drop in the standard of living. And for some people in the economy, I think that's true. Except I have seen this in my own relatively short lifespan. I think it's the expectation level in America that's fueling this. We want everything. And we feel if we don't get it, that we are being persecuted. Pick up the Sunday paper. Just grab the real estate section. Grab, the Sunday LA Times or the Daily News or the Orange County Register or the Long Beach Press Telegram, whatever it is you're reading, and pull out the real estate section. And there's always a section about new homes. And they're usually out in like Lancaster. They're getting further and further away, of course, because affordable homes just don't exist in the immediate LA area because people don't want the commute. So things get very expensive. But look at the size and the amenities that are being put into homes that are built for the middle class. Homes have atriums. They're offering spas. They're coming now pre-wired with, internet connection already in the house with, electronic sensors so that when you walk into the room, the lights turn on automatically. Ceiling fans, skylights, all of this stuff. And then you just drive through an older LA neighborhood and take a look at the houses. Take a look at what our parents and grandparents grew up in. What we grew up in, if you're 40 years old or older. We didn't live like that. I grew up in a house in New York that had one bathroom for 5 people. No garage. And it was fine. We didn't think anything of it. That's just the way it was. The first house, the only house I've ever owned out here, was a little house in Burbank. over by the airport. It was originally a 930 square foot house, 2 bedrooms, floor furnace, which, by the way, was new to me coming from the East. I stepped on it once with no shoes on. The bottom of my foot looked like a waffle at the International House. It looked like good and fruity Rudy Tooty. The only thing I was missing was the whipped cream and the strawberries on the bottom of my foot. I had that waffle pattern on there for about a month. And, you know, that people live like they raise families in those houses. But now we want so much more. Look at the cars. I mean, people are paying $35,000 for what's essentially a pickup truck. A pick-em-up truck. But it's got chrome wheels, it's got a CD player, it's got leather seats, it's got electronic climate control. Some of the cars have dual climate control so that the passenger on one side can have one temperature, the driver can have another temperature. They even have this option if you live in cold weather places where you can click a switch and the heating coils in the seat come on so that your little rear end is toasty, nice and toasty, which is a great idea unless, you know, you've gone 2 days without changing your underwear. Then you don't want to be sitting on a heating coil. Believe me, nobody wants to be in the car with you unless you got a lot of those little pine trees hanging from the rear view mirror. Anyway, you know, we talk about materialism as being the sin of capitalism. If any ism can have an upside and a downside, and the downside of capitalism is materialism. And I really wonder how many of us are chasing the clock, squeezing in as much work as humanly possible so that we can have stuff. We're choosing to have stuff over time. And I really wonder if it's healthy. And I can't be the only person out there who's thought about this. I know that there's probably people right now who are getting home from work at 2:45 in the morning. They're still on a freeway after a 22-hour day. And they're scratching their head saying, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? You know, Ted Kaczynski, who was a nut, the Unabomber, he did have some points. I mean, now, obviously, mailing out bombs to anonymous people is really sick. But in his manifesto, he was talking about the pace of life and the technological society dehumanizing people. And there's a lot of truth to that. The internet, the fax machines, the cell phones, the pagers, the beepers, all of this stuff makes it possible for them to find you, for them to demand stuff of you 24 hours a day. Let's go out to Joan in L.A. Joan, you're a first-time caller. Welcome to the program. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Excellent. Thanks for calling this morning.
Oh, you're welcome. You're keeping me up nights, Doug.
Yeah, are you working?
No, I'm not working. I used to work, and I used to work 17, 18 hours a day.
What kind of work were you doing?
I was a nurse.
Oh, yeah, well, those are long shifts. Those are long hours.
Very long hours. And it was just to keep up. But I agree with you that we just want material things above relationships. And in L.A. in particular, I think it's very difficult to draw that line and when you stop wanting things, because no matter how much you have, there's always someone with a bigger house, a newer car, more cars. And to keep, yourself focused on what's important in life is really difficult. We live in la-la land here.
Well, I do think that it is actually a worse problem here than in other places because, and part of this is the reflection of the Hollywood community where facade is everything. I mean, right. You work on a movie set and they can build an incredible reproduction of, anything, but it's a facade.
Right.
And it's all about making it look good for the camera. And I think that there are a lot of people who need to put up that image just to survive in Hollywood. Let's go out and buy a Mercedes-Benz, but we're living in a one-bedroom apartment with cottage cheese on the ceiling, but you have to go to showbiz meetings so that when you have that lunch meeting and the valet guy brings the car around, it's a Mercedes and it looks like you're doing really well. And meanwhile, you're going back, to Pacoima and ducking, airplanes going into Van Nuys Airport.
Right, you're right. Well, I don't know. It just gets worse and worse, though. So
why did you? You're no longer working. Did you just have it? You just got sick of it?
I got physically sick.
Yeah, well, that's another cause too. There's a lot of people. All of these illnesses that we never heard of in our lives when we were kids. Epstein-Barr. Did anybody ever remember hearing about that in 1955?
No, never.
I mean, of course, I remember even back then, though, frankly, the Long Island Railroad in New York used to have bar cars. And these guys, the Dash and Dans, the commuters, would run down to Penn Station, hop on the train. They'd knock back a couple of vodka tonics. And I realized that there were husbands and wives who never saw each other sober until the weekend. It's true, because, Dad had put in a 12-hour day. He's in the bar car. He's had 5 drinks by the time he reels in the door. He has another cocktail when he gets, with dinner. And it's sleepy pie on the sofa. And then it's back on the train in the morning. And that's the way people lived, because they got to unwind. They're so stressed out.
Right. Well, I don't know what to say about that, but we do have to slow down. Otherwise, we're just going to have things.
Well, I think that
relationships.
I really think it's true, and I think that a lot of people, if you live an isolated life, then the things become even more important because they fill the void. And we've all seen that. We've seen the rush of go to a mall and watch people at the mall on a Saturday, and it's almost like they're junkies. It's almost like they've got a buzz. They've got a shopping buzz going on. And it's just amazing to watch these. And I have to, this is a male observation, but I watch these young girls who are working as receptionists or whatever they're doing, and they're young girls and they're not making a lot of money. And then on Saturday and Sunday, they're shopping for clothes, blowing every dime that they made Monday through Friday to buy clothes on Saturday to Sunday that they can wear to work Monday through Friday. It's like an insane cycle, isn't it?
Right.
You just empty your wallet on Saturday and Sunday to buy clothes to wear to work Monday through Friday so that you can do the same thing again next weekend.
Well, I think it's true, and we waste so much. We always have to buy something new. As soon as one thing kind of wears out, or doesn't even wear out, we want the newest, latest.
Well, it's planned obsolescence. Detroit, the auto industry concocted this hideous methodology in the 60s and 70s when they wanted the cars to last about 2 years. Mm-hmm. So they made junk,
right.
with fake plastic linings on the dashboards and the sides of the doors, but they would put into the plastic stitching, like molded stitching, so that it created the illusion that it was leather. It wasn't leather, it was crappy plastic, and if it got above 100 degrees, the glue softened and it would peel off the door. It was fooling nobody. The car was junk, and they wanted it to be junk because they wanted you to buy another one. And they learned how to do that. Let's just change the fins a little bit. We'll make the fins on the Cadillac, the 58 Cadillac, a little bit bigger than the fins on the 57 Cadillac. And what that does is it tells the guy driving the 57 Cadillac, you are not keeping up.
Right.
You are not at the top of the heap. You better go out and get yourself a 58 Cadillac. And they still do that. You tweak it just a little, just enough to make a difference, to keep that class going, that class warfare going, that the guy down the street's got the brand new Lexus, and you got the one that's 2 years old, and therefore you're less a person. People buy into that crap.
Yeah, they do. I think we all do.
I'm guilty of it.
Yeah, we all are. Well, I just want to tell you how much I enjoy your show, and I wish you were on till 10 in the morning. I know you don't, but I really enjoy your show.
Well, I appreciate that very much, and it's great having a first-time caller. Now, so you're out of the nursing game?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Is your life better?
Yeah, I would say so. Yes, it's much better.
Well, that's good. You have more time for...
I have more time to do the things I want to do, and I actually feel guilty sometimes, but trying to enjoy the time I have.
All right. Well, listen, thanks for the call, Joan. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect case in point. You can kick back a little bit. You can see a few more things. You can, there's an old cliche that says nobody on their deathbed, nobody, as they're, got the feeding tubes in and, they're getting poked and prodded and someone comes in twice a day to roll them so you don't get bed sores. Nobody on their deathbed has ever said, God, I just wish I had worked a little longer on the Thompson account. Nobody's saying, they just don't say that. They say, I wish I had seen my kids more. I wish I got to play with my grandchildren. I wish I had traveled. I wish I got to see the world. I wish I had learned how to play the piano. They don't say, God, back in 2001, I looked at that Jaguar. I looked at the Jaguar, the S-Class, and what did I do? I went with the Oldsmobile. I really wish I had bought the Jaguar. You know, I mean, that's not what people say on their deathbed. They're not concerned about, you know, I had that crappy big screen TV when I really wanted the flat screen TV that you could hang on the wall. I know it was $5,000, but boy, could I watch the March Madness. It'd be unbelievable. The picture would be so great watching college basketball. And that's what we're doing. We're working, you know, we're working like crazy because we want more stuff. And it's reflected in the homes themselves. You drive around and through most parts of older sections of L.A., you go up into the valley, all over the San Fernando Valley. A lot of those homes up there were built during the war to house munitions workers, aircraft workers, when Lockheed was in Burbank and they were building all the planes to defeat the Nazis and the Germans. They needed places for people to live. So they built cheap, inexpensive housing, functional, not glamorous. Those homes are there. They've been changed. People have added a rec room. They've added a second story in some cases. But the basic houses were about 930, maybe 1,000 square feet on the bigger side. A small little kitchen, one bathroom, a little detached garage, 2 bedrooms, and families raised kids in them. There's a lot of you out there I know grew up in those houses. And now you look at a house that's targeted for the middle class. And they've got solariums. They've got hot tubs, circular driveways, atriums. What's an atrium? I got an atrium in my house. I don't need an atrium. Honey, did you leave your stuff in the atrium? I mean, I can't find my car keys. They're in the atrium. I have no idea what that's about. You know, it's about we want this stuff because we are consumers. It's the highest virtue in America. It's the consumer culture. And look, I am not moralizing here because I am as guilty of this as anybody. I look at that stuff and I want a Jaguar. I want myself one of them Jaguars. Anyway, let's see what Mark thinks. Mark in West LA, how are you?
Hi, Doug. Yeah, I have to disagree with with your statements that Americans are just so busy in keeping up with the Joneses. I think one of the couple of the reasons Americans are working so hard is a lot of them want to live in a halfway decent neighborhood because it's just simply too dangerous to live in a lot of neighborhoods in the country anymore. You know, and that's verified on the nightly news every day with all the shootings and killings.
Although I will say, the crime is down, and it's been going down for 10 straight years.
I'm going to have to take exception to the so-called statistics, okay?
Well, remember, we live in, we talked about this last night, we live in the goofball city. The only major city in America where crime is going up is L.A.
Yeah, but, I'll have to take exception to those statistics. Unfortunately, not everything you hear is true. Or read is true. And
in fact, I'm beginning to believe that the vast majority of what we hear and read isn't true.
Let me give you a brief example. When I first moved out here to L.A., I lived downtown, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, you would, of course, on the news, you see, this shooting or that shooting or whatnot. Well, the area that I lived in when I first moved out here, the gunfire would start at 7 p.m., 7 in the evening, and the gunfire would continue throughout the night till about 5 in the morning, all right? And I was working days at the time, and I'd come home, and some people would tell me, I had to leave early, and some people would tell me, there's a body across the street. I never
Mark,
heard about it in the paper.
Mark, we're coming up on the news. Would you hold on?
Sure.
Okay, hang on. We'll come back to you. Hang on. All right, folks, let's go to the phones. 1-800-222-KABC. We got lots of lines open. You'll get right in. We're going to stop for a little news. We'll continue talking about this obsession with work and what the causes are. Or we can talk about anything else you want to get into. This is Red Eye Radio, Flight 790, right here on Talk Radio 790 KABC. Grab a line. Let's play some talk radio, folks. 1-800-222-KABC. We got a lot of lines open. Come on, folks. Come on, boiled owls and swell eggs. Now is the time to come to the aid of your talk show. Pick up the phone. Light them up. Evelyn is waiting to take your call at 307. What the hell? We're talking a little bit about the American work ethic. Americans work very hard. It's one of the reasons why the nation is rich, because Our system of government traditionally allows you to keep the fruits of your own labor, where a lot of countries they don't. That's one of the reasons in Mexico the national motto is mañana, mañana. We'll do it tomorrow, because there was no incentive to work hard because they're going to take it from you. You're not going to get to keep it. And that's certainly the case in communism, the dumbest economic system ever, where they promise equality of outcome. So that if you're an ambitious, hardworking person who really wants to make a difference, it doesn't matter. You're going to get exactly the same as the guy down there who's lazy. Well, what incentive is that? None. But there is a downside to this, because I think we're becoming work-obsessed. A lot of people are becoming work-obsessed. And the issue is why, and what are we missing out? There's a big study that ABC News has done on this, and you can find it on the web at abcnews.com. You can read all about it. And, it's even reflected... It's reflected in a lot of different ways that are actually alarming. Not only the fact that kids rarely see their parents and vice versa. Everybody's calendar is full. They need people are walking around with appointment books. As a kid, I never remember seeing anyone in my life with an appointment book. My mother and father did not have calendars. They did not have calendars that they had to refer to find out whether they could go to the barbecue 2 weeks from today. Everybody's got a calendar, Palm Pilots, organizers. We're just so busy. And it's busy, to me, without a lot of reward at the end of all of it. You know what? The average Japanese worker has over $100,000 in cash in the bank. For the first time ever, the average American was in debt. Usually to Visa and MasterCard. And I know what I'm talking about there. I've had Visa bills delivered by postal forklift. Here they're backing it up. It's beeping as it comes up. Dropping off my Visa bill. So we're talking about that. We'll talk to you about that or anything else you want to get into. Any topic is fair game. We'll bring some other stuff up in the course of the show. But we're talking with Mark in West L.A. Mark, thanks for holding. I appreciate it. Mark, right before the break, you were making the point that it's your opinion that you think that a lot of people are working this hard so they can move to better neighborhoods.
Well, that's one of the reasons. It's just too dangerous to live in most neighborhoods, whereas back in the 50s, or even the 60s, there just wasn't this high level of homicidal crime.
But that doesn't explain things like the SUV craze.
No, and then getting back to some of this other stuff, the fact is in the 50s and the 60s, a lot of people knew how to fix their own cars and were able to fix their own cars.
Yeah, you can't.
Now, nowadays, it's very difficult. You need specialized electronic equipment to fix most vehicles.
I just went through it. I have an American automobile.
That people can't afford, so...
I have an American car that is not exotic by any... It's a 96 Ford, okay? Very, very common automobile. 17 days it was in the repair shop because sensors and computers were broken. Now, when I had a 64 Chevy... The starter motor burnt out, the solenoid. I started it for 3 weeks with a screwdriver by jumping the spark.
Right.
You can't do that anymore.
Correct. And so the other thing is, what I'm saying is it would require specialized electronic equipment that's beyond the expenses of most people to purchase to fix those cars. And even more interestingly, a lot of communities have outlawed the ability to work in your car. If I'm not mistaken, in Santa Monica, you cannot fix your car in your driveway.
Well, a lot of those things are passed as quality of life issues because we've all had that neighbor who for some reason decides to tune up his car at 3 o'clock in the morning and he's gunning the engine in the garage blowing out a cloud of smoke at 3 in the morning. I had a neighbor who did that.
Yeah, but I think that's the exception. I think guys like that are kind of weird. And the other thing is a lot of jobs, frankly, are either being exported overseas or workers are being imported. I know on this show several times people have talked about illegal immigrants. Well, most of the restaurant jobs, for example, in L.A. County are done by people in Central and South America. When I was growing up, you would see high school kids working in the McDonald's or the fast food joints. I don't think I very rarely see that nowadays.
Well, but the high school kids are driving brand new cars.
Well, are they? I'm not so sure.
I see an awful lot of it. I see an awful lot of young kids driving brand new Ford Mustang convertibles, brand new BMWs. This is the thing. I think it's a combination of all. There's not one answer to this.
And what
but there's also
what part of town are you seeing those in?
Well, I'm seeing it all over town. I drive all over the city. And by the way, there is one significant change in the way people work. 50 years ago, and I don't know the exact number, but a much, much larger percentage of the American workforce were in labor unions. And labor unions had very specific work rules on how many hours you could be at the place.
Labor unions have been diluted quite a bit.
That's right. And what happens is more people today are working for themselves.
No, and one of the reasons is that they've broken a lot of unions.
Well, that's a lot of the third shift with belching smokestack kind of industry, lunch pail industries. Those industries aren't here anymore. The steel industry's gone from Pennsylvania.
Or they've been shipped overseas.
Yes. But my point is that in replacement of that, the so-called entrepreneurial spirit, which is largely wonderful, but a lot of people work for themselves, or corporations have discovered that if they hire people as freelance employees, they don't have to pay health benefits. So now people are independent contractors. And as everybody knows, when you own your own business, you work a lot longer hours than if you're an employee.
And there's also a big expansion in the temporary labor force, where you don't have to pay people benefits and whatnot, and that's a current trend too. And of course, you've probably seen on the news when they had hearings in Congress not too long ago in Silicon Valley. A lot of professionals were claiming that they were importing professionals from overseas.
Yes.
Who work at say a third less than American workers will.
Well, yes and no. I mean, once they come over here, of course, it doesn't last long. If they're good, they get raises and they get right up to the same race as everybody else.
From what I saw on the TV, just going by what I saw, they were still working at a third less, And I don't think on visas, if I'm not mistaken, they're not required. There's something about the visa.
Look, the bottom line, Mark, is that the median income of the average American worker has never been higher. It's not an economic issue in that sense. I believe that the issue is we want more. We expect more out of life. We live on wall-to-wall carpeting with a touch of the controls. We can change the air conditioning, central air conditioning. I never lived in a house that had air conditioning until I moved here.
That's simply technology, and when you're talking
but it's not just technology, it's expectations. Now that's what people expect.
When you're talking about the size of houses, you're just talking about modern construction technology.
No, but it's not, Mark, it didn't happen in a vacuum. The reason they're building it that way is because that's what the people want.
Yeah. Well, I think most people live in apartments nowadays because very few can afford houses, and I think frankly a lot of the jobs are either being exported overseas or.
Well, unemployment is very low. Unemployment's very low,
and they're working. They're working longer hours. They're working 2 jobs for less money, just to keep their head above water.
Okay, let's leave it there. Thanks for the call. I appreciate it. Bye. All right. We got Dave coming up from Hollywood, 1-800-222-KABC. Dave wants to change the topic. That's fine. And since no one's calling, I guess this topic dies. If we don't care, I've made my point. If people don't care to respond to it, that's fine. We'll move on to other things. Let me just try this coffee, by the way. Oh, bad. Screwed again by the internet. I got this coffee from www.beans.com. I downloaded it, actually. It's like Napster. You just hold your cup right by the printer. Awful. Don't fall for it, folks. Bad idea. Go get your coffee in a store. Don't get it off the internet. All right, I'm Doug McIntyre. When we come back, we'll talk to Dave in Hollywood, and we'll talk to you if you'll call at 1-800-222-KABC. Otherwise, I'm just going to be talking here for 4 hours, which, fine. I've done it before. This is Red Eye Radio Flight 790. This is Talk Radio 790 KBC, and this is Steve Kelly.
Talk Radio 790 KABC, the voice of Southern California.
Do nothing till you hear from me. Pay no attention to what's said. Why people tear the seam of anyone's dream is over. mind.
Oh, that's the great Jack Sheldon. This is Doug McIntyre. This is Red Eye Radio, Flight 790, right here on Talk Radio 790 KABC. The time is 3:19 in the a.m. We fly all the way till 6 in the morning.
Oh, boy.
1-800-222-KABC. I'll tell you, the reason this work subject has really struck home is that I've been, I have a day job, as you know. And for the last few months, I've been living like a nut. I mean, it's at the point where I have to send the laundry out. I'm paying to get my laundry done because I don't have time to do it. I lost my ATM card 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago. And I knew I lost it within 24 hours. I called the bank and canceled it. I have not been able to get to the bank to get it replaced. So I've been getting all my cash as credit card cash advances, paying the 18%, thief interest rates that they pay, because I don't have time to go to the bank and do it. This is nuts. This is not a way to live. And I think a lot of people are doing this. You drive around at 9 o'clock at night, and there are people still coming home from work, and they've been there since 7. And I'm convinced that part of it is taxes are too high. We know that tax day is like May 15th or 16th. You work from January 1st to the middle of May just to pay your tax bill. That's why 2 people are working. 2 people are working. One of them's working just to pay the taxes. And yet, they don't want to cut the taxes. Somehow that's wrong because the rich are getting a break. But we also expect so much more. The stuff that we are driving around in, our cars are the perfect reflection of it. This is a car nation. They are so elegant, so sophisticated. Even cheap cars, the so-called cheap cars, which aren't that cheap, by the way, they've got air conditioning, and we did not have a car with air conditioning when I was a kid. It was in the summer. It was 98 degrees with 90% humidity, and everybody's sweating, sticking. You needed a spatula to get your ass off the seat when you tried to get out of the car. You spraying Pam on the seat so that you don't stick to the seat cushions. It was horrible. But we've got all this stuff, and we want it. I want it. Look, I'm guilty of it. But sometimes you walk around and say, why am I buying this? I don't need this. This isn't going to make me happy. But we keep buying it anyway because we're good consumers. All right, anything you want to talk about is fair game. We look at all these first-time callers coming out of the woodwork and all kinds of topics. This is great. Let's go out to Dave in Hollywood. Dave, good morning. How are you?
Hi there. How you doing?
Excellent. Thanks for calling today.
Yeah, I didn't mean to change the topic.
No, you're more than... this show is your show. We'll talk about anything you want to get into.
Okay, well, I kind of thought it was still on the topic, and what it was, you're there 5 days a week, and I really look forward to hearing you come on. And I was thinking to myself, being on the radio... bunch of hours and
yeah, I think so. It's an old thing. The show must go on. There's some famous showbiz stories. Henry Fonda, his wife committed suicide while he was doing Mr. Roberts on Broadway. And it's obviously a terrible tragedy. He went and did the show that night. And there was a famous story. Lou Costello of Abbott and Costello, his son drowned in the swimming pool. A terrible tragedy. And they were doing, Abbott and Costello had a live radio show, a network radio show at the time. And virtually every comic in town volunteered to go do the show that night for him. And Lou said, no, I'm going to do it because I promised my son he was going to listen to it, and wherever he is, he's going to hear the show. And he went and did the show. Now, that to me is a massive ability to separate, to just say, all right, I'm going to do this for whatever reason. Now, nothing terrible like that has happened in my life. But I do have crummy days like anybody else. The other day, I had an awful day, a rotten day. My whole day was chewed up with technological glitches, with lost files. My day job was completely screwed up. I got nothing done and nothing but aggravation. But when you come here, I can't bring that on the air with me. Who wants to listen to that? I mean, you can... do you want to listen to that? You've had problems all day in your lives. You want to come in and listen to a guy complain for 4 hours about how crummy he is? I've got a pretty easy life, relatively speaking. There are people right now who are doing jobs that, God bless them, I don't want to do them. And I've had jobs. I've also had jobs, believe me, that were a lot worse than anything that I'm doing today.
No, it's good to hear you. It's uplifting, especially the first 20, 30 minutes with the stuff you say. It's really funny. I was thinking one of these times maybe you always downplay yourself, but it'd be good to know just maybe you could spend 15 minutes and explain a little bit about you, because a lot of people are out there like me that everybody calls in. It's good to hear people like me call in or whatever, or other people call in, but it'd also be good to know a little more of the background of you, since now you're like everybody's friend here.
Well, it all started in a log cabin. It all began in a log cabin many years ago. Well,
I've agreed. You know, I've agreed with everything you've ever said except for one thing.
What is it?
The one thing I didn't agree with was you say this one statement, which is, I mean, everything you've ever said, but this one, which is, the reason that the presidential race was so close is that we had two bad candidates. And the thing that I thought, is that right? And then I thought to myself, wait a second, we had a real high voter turnout for these two bad candidates. And I started thinking, I think it had, this is my opinion, that it had to do with the issues, and it had to do with the Supreme Court appointees and that sort of thing, and the churches versus the issues of the morals. It didn't have anything to do with it being the names of the candidates. It had to do with the churches and the people that had certain beliefs were for this side of what they thought.
Well, it pointed out, I agree with you in this regard, Dave. I think that this past election, and if you look at the map, and they've color-coded it blue for Bush, red for Gore, where they did well, there is definitely a divide in the nation between the so-called rural areas and the urban areas. The urban America voted for Al Gore overwhelmingly, and rural America voted for George Bush overwhelmingly. And that is an interesting issue. We could do a whole show on that. What is the divide between places like Utah? Why is Utah seeing the world so differently than Los Angeles? Why is, let's take a state like the Dakotas. Why are they seeing it so differently than Florida or New Jersey or New York?
That is very interesting. Also, like right now, as we speak, I guess the Pope has landed in Greece for the first time in 1,291 years.
Yeah, although I must point out it's not the same Pope.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a different Pope, but you're right, and they're very upset about it. Yes.
And that's something I was thinking. I wonder why he didn't go there all the time. But
well, there was a big rift between the Greek Orthodox Church and the Roman Catholic Church, and there was a schism within the Catholic faith. And this Pope has tried to bridge some of those gaps. He was also the first Pope to ever visit a synagogue ever in the history of the Catholic Church. But what was interesting to me about it, and I saw this story, I actually pulled it to talk about it the other night. We never got around to it. But it's interesting because there was a great deal of animosity about Pope John Paul showing up in Greece. And to me, that's the kind of stuff that gives religion a bad name. When you see other religions picketing and protesting and vilifying another religious leader just for showing up, that to me makes no sense. Wouldn't you want to embrace that, sort of coming together? But instead, they look at it as an insult. That kind of religious dogmatism really is lost on me. I don't get it at all. I mean, I certainly, as a Roman Catholic, I certainly would not be upset if the head of the Greek Orthodox Church were to come to Rome, go to the Vatican, and visit the Pope. I would not be saying, we must stop this, this is terrible, I don't understand it.
Yeah. Well,
hey, listen, Dave, I really appreciate the call. I appreciate the kind words.
Okay, I'll let you go.
All right, we'll talk to you again, okay?
Okay.
Thank you, bye-bye. Ralph in Calabasas, a first-time caller, good morning.
Good morning, Doug. I enjoy listening to your show. I agree with a lot of the things you say. You're quite endowed with a lot of wisdom. I wanted to go back to that thing about affordable housing.
Okay.
You mentioned your, quote, small Burbank house.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, people would kill for that house.
Oh, you're right.
Because of the location.
That's right.
And what have you.
And they are. I mean, the prices of those. I want to cry. I told this story. I bought the only home I've ever owned. I bought this little house in Burbank in 1988. Or excuse me, in 86. I paid $132,500 for this house. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. It had an illegally constructed lanai that they enclosed into a family room that was falling apart. But I thought it was great. I had a bad pool table back there. I loved it. and it had a little swimming pool in the backyard. To me, growing up in New York, where an apartment, a one-bedroom apartment, cost $250,000, I thought, this is heaven. $132,500 for a house with a pool, I'm in heaven. Okay? Well, I lost the house in the writer's strike in 1988. I had to sell it. But I did find out recently that that house, last year, sold for $267,000. Almost exactly double what I paid for it in 1986. And it made me want to cry. If I could have held on to that house, I would have made a 100% profit in 14 years. A 100% profit in 14 years. And that's what's going on. And the same thing happened in New York, Ralph. People don't want to make these commutes. They're getting burned out on these 2-hour commutes getting to and from work. If you have to add 2 hours going and 2 hours coming from work, that's 4 hours on top of a 12-hour day. You're never seeing your family. So they will pay any price, if they have the ability, to get closer to where they work.
Also, there's another interesting concept I heard. This is once a fellow told me, I couldn't afford to buy my house again.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, if you didn't buy it way back then, you couldn't buy it now. Assuming that your salary is like your dad's was or something, you probably couldn't afford to buy that Burbank house now.
I'm telling you right now, I can't afford to buy that Burbank house right now. I'm working 2 jobs and 2, well-paying jobs, but I have so much debt from unemployment, in the career that I've chosen, and I accept this. I'm not saying this, cue the violins, poor Doug, but it comes with the turf. You work as a writer in Hollywood and in the radio business, we get fired all the time. There's no gold watches in this business. Our Ford plant closes every 13 weeks in TV. Shows get canceled and you're out of work. So as a result, when you're out of work for a long period of time, you run up a lot of debt, you live on credit cards. And then you get a job, and you use all the money from that job just to pay off the debt you ran up from the period you were out of work the last time. So that is the situation I personally find myself in. So I look around, and sure, I'd love to have the tax incentives and the permanence of owning a home, but frankly, right now, it's going to take me 2 years before I have enough money to put a down payment on anything.
I did a little thinking and tried to figure out why the prices are going up the way they are. And I think I came up with the culprit. And the culprit is financing. Back when I first came to California in 1960-62, the rules for an FHA loan, a GI loan, et cetera, were much stricter. They only talked about one paycheck in the family.
You're right about this. And also, let's talk about how much down could get you in. People are buying houses with 5% down. And frankly, what they're doing is they're setting themselves up for disaster. Because you've got a mortgage that you've got no control over. They're taking anything to get in, and therefore, so they'll take these flexible mortgages. So you can't predict what your house payments. I was at a Vaughn's this afternoon, and the manager at Vaughn's, I heard him complaining that his house payment went up $400 last month because he has a flexible mortgage, and that's a catastrophe. Because if you've got you're a salaried employee and you know exactly how much money you're going to make in the following 12-month period, but you're locked into house payments that can go up at any time, you're really on thin ice there.
That's a new thing. But I meant when I said the rules for financing. Imagine if people couldn't get loans unless they could A, come up with a sizable down payment, B, you were talking about just your net pay and only one paycheck. And you had these rules now. Contractors would have to design their homes around a much lower selling price.
And the other thing we have to remember is that the population of L.A. has increased dramatically. California's population is over 33 million. There's so many more people, and it's supply and demand. It's economics 101. When there is more demand for housing, the price of housing goes up. I'll tell you, you want cheap housing? You go to Iowa. You go to Idaho. I almost wept. I was in a coffee shop in Idaho Falls, Idaho, American Falls, Idaho, one of the prettiest towns I've ever been, at a waterfall running right down the middle of the town. a river with a waterfall. And I picked up the real estate brochure, a 3-bedroom house on 3 acres for $32,500.
Wow.
But the thing is, if you want to live near a great urban center where the careers are, where the stuff that we do, I can't do what I do in Idaho. So we collect around these gigantic, 85% of the U.S. population lives right around the coast, either east or west or south, the Gulf Coast. We live right around the water, and we're all jammed into these cities, the megalopolis of the East Coast, from Boston through, Providence, Rhode Island, down to all the cities of Connecticut, Bridgeport, New Haven, going into the gigantic New York City, Newark, New Jersey complex, to Philadelphia, to Washington, D.C. It's a megalopolis. It's really one gigantic city with a couple of trees thrown in between. And the housing is through the roof there, and in L.A. it's through the roof. And how about San Francisco? If you want to pay through the nose.
Silicon Valley.
Yeah. It's about it's supply and demand. That's really what it is. We are living in a place that's a highly desirable place to live, and therefore the cost of housing goes through the roof. Ralph, I have to take a break. Please call me again, okay?
Thank you very much, Doug.
Thank you, Ralph. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
All right, when we come back from the break, we're going to talk to Fred, who's on a cell phone in Encino. He's a first-time caller. Helen's a first-time caller. Larry in Van Nuys, Gina in L.A., a first-time caller, and Gil in L.A. This is great, folks. New voices. We love this on Red Eye Radio. We have 2 lines open, 1-800-222-KABC. We'll talk to you about whatever you want to get into. You can change the topic if you want, but we'll be more than happy to continue to explore this area of discussion as well. I'm Doug McIntyre. This is Red Eye Radio Flight 790. Right here on Talk Radio 790 KBC. Here is Steve Kelly.
Good morning, Doug. Good morning, everybody. A 9-month investigation into Hugh Hefner's party-going ways has turned out in his favor. The investigation stemmed from a neighbor's complaint that Hef was running a commercial party business out of his famous Playboy mansion in
Voice of Southern California. Talk Radio 790 KABC.
Listeners, now is the time to go to the phones. 1-800-222-KABC. Attention, boiled owls and swell eggs. The telephone number is 1-800-222-KABC. Over.
Oh, a little Alvino Ray, Birth of the Blues, a great Johnny Mercer tune. I got to play the Sinatra version of this one night. It's one of the most beautiful songs ever recorded. Folks, this is Red Eye Radio, Flight 790, right here on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We have 2 lines open. We'd love to hear from you tonight on any topic that's on your mind tonight. Doesn't have to be what we're discussing. You can change it if you wish. Let's go back to the phones. We have Helen in San Fernando. She's a first-time caller. Helen, good morning. How are you? Hello, Helen. Helen! Helen!
Helen!
Hello.
Hello.
I'm here.
How are you?
You want me? It's Helene. That's why I didn't understand.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, it's not your fault. I was trying to tell her it was Helen with an E on the end.
Well, she did put it up that way. I just flat out mispronounced it.
Shame on you.
I know. I'm
anyway,
a bad talk show host.
I wanted to get in when Mel Torme's son was on your...
Well, Steve March Torme. We'll have Steve on the show again.
No, I'm going to tell you. I worked for the pediatrician who took care of him when he was a baby.
Really?
And I remember the Tormes when they came in with 2 different kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were going through a divorce.
Yes.
And the pediatrician I worked for took care of so many movie stars. We had Sinatra's kids.
Mm-hmm.
We had, you name it, we had it. We had Ronald Reagan's kids. I remember when Michael came in as an adopted child, he looked like a little lost waif. And I remember Maureen, and Oscar Levant brought his kids in. And I will never forget Oscar Levant coming into the office and putting on a show.
I wonder if anybody even remembers who Oscar Levant is. Oscar Levant made a lot of movies. He was in Nats Entertainment and a whole bunch of movies. A great, great piano player.
Well, he was one of the brightest guys, but he was going through a terrible depression.
Well, his whole life was a depression. He actually wrote one of the most entertaining and interesting autobiographies I've ever read called Memoirs of an Amnesiac.
Well, he had
It's a fantastic book.
He had 3 children, and how his wife, who was such a beauty, ever got through living with that guy.
He was an impossible person. You know, he showed up. He was friends with Harpo Marx. And he showed up one weekend to spend the weekend at Harpo's house and stayed for 4 years. He did.
Believe it.
I mean, he was an absolute nut, but he was a personal friend of George Gershwin's.
Well, not long ago, they showed a Gershwin movie.
Yes, Rhapsody in Blue. I think
they showed him playing.
He's a brilliant pianist. Brilliant.
I agree.
And he was very funny. He was this real sort of, meat-faced kind of dour guy. And he was very acerbic, very funny guy, but he was just a handful to deal with, Oscar Levant.
Well, he loved being on stage. The minute he walked into that office to talk to my doctor about his kids, do you think he talked about his kids? He just was on stage.
Yeah.
We had Lauren Bacall and Bogey's family.
Uh-huh.
She went through hell watching him die.
Yeah.
But she never changed her attitude. She just was fantastic.
Steve March Torme, by the way, there's a link to Steve's website through our website, and the official, unofficial website of this show is at www.
I don't have a computer.
Well, I'll tell it to those who do. www.lightsomewhere.com, L-I-G-H-T somewhere.com, all one word. And you click on Steve's name, and it's got the list of his schedule. He's actually going out on tour. On May 25th, he's going to be in Trenton, New Jersey. On May 26th, he's going to be at the Sands Hotel in Atlantic City.
Well, if he ever wanted to call me, he could do that.
Well, I'll tell you,
I don't have a computer.
Well, we will have him back on the show in the not-too-distant future, because we play his stuff every night here. We play L.A. Late at Night.
I thought he'd get a kick out of it.
Well, listen, the next time he calls in, the next time he's on the show, you definitely have to call in.
Well, he was a cute baby.
Well, and he's a very talented singer.
I can hear it. I've listened to all the shows that you presented with him on it.
Yeah. Well, Helene, thank you so much for calling. I appreciate it.
I like your show.
Thank you so much. We'll talk to you again.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Let's go out and say a little Larry in Van Nuys. Larry, good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
How are you?
Real good.
Good.
Question. You're talking about all your financial problems. How bad are you in debt?
About $40,000.
Ouch.
Yep. But I also went through a divorce. That didn't help.
No. What you had, she took. What you didn't earn yet, she took.
Yeah, well...
What you earned in the future, she took a piece of.
Well, there was just... most of it is just bad decisions on my own part. I mean, I'm bad with money. I mean, I'm terrible with money. I'm awful. I'm just bad with money.
Maybe you need a money manager.
I have a money manager, and he's the most... we call him Drysdale, like Milburn Drysdale. Because my business manager, I told him one time, I said, Larry, do you realize that you're my people? You know how insulting it is to be Doug McIntyre's people? When you say, I'll have talk to my guy Larry. And he's wonderful, and he's very, very successful. And I swear, he keeps my accounts, my corporate accounts and personal accounts as an act of charity. Because he is not making any money on my stuff, believe me. I don't know why. I have actually asked him, I said, why do you continue to do that? And I've been with him for 15 years now. But it's not his fault. Believe me, it's my fault.
That sounds like my clients.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to talk to you about the standard of living.
Okay.
I watch my clients, who I'm a business manager for, spend money. This week, 3 cars were purchased.
Who is this?
My clients.
Okay, your clients. Yeah, okay. They bought
3 cars were purchased.
Right.
Mercedes and 2 Jaguars.
Mm-hmm. Jaguars, excuse me. Yes, because they can charge more for them now that they're Jaguars.
Yes, I mean...
Because they're classier.
They are nice, though.
Oh, they're beautiful.
I got one, too. That's another story. No one cares how much they're paying for it. How much is the payment?
Well, that's exactly right. They just want to know how much a month is it going to cost me, not how much am I going to be paying overall.
How much is my debt when I'm going to, at the end of the lease? I don't care. They're turning it in. How many miles can I drive a year? They don't care because they're not going to put more than $12,000 a year on it. And they'll drive it for whatever the lease period is and get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to really do that, that's probably the cheapest way of owning a car.
Well, yeah, there's a lot, and I've leased a number of cars in my life. But the thing is that, as you know, buying a car is a complete loss. You're not going to sell the car at the end of your term of ownership and make a profit on it. The only way you can do that is if you buy a car, you drive it until it's paid off, you owe it free and clear, and then you drive it for 2 or 3 years past that point, and then sell it. Now you've gotten your money's worth out of the car. But we don't do that anymore, especially out in the car capital of the world. Everybody wants the latest, the nicest, the fanciest thing that they can possibly get their mitts on. I mean, not everybody, obviously, but I admit it. I'm a car nut. I love cars. I mean, the car I'm driving now I've had for 4 years, and after the year I've had with it the last couple of months, I'd like nothing more than for somebody to steal it. They'd be doing me a favor at this point. But the bottom line is, if I had the dough, I'd be driving me one of them Jaguars. They're beautiful. I'm a car nut. I love them. I'm the only person in the world. I love shopping for new cars. Where else? It's the only time in my life that a guy in a $9 suit will grovel. You know, these car salesmen, they kiss your ass. They'll do anything for you. Can we get you anything? Would you like to come in and sit down? Would you like to do this? You know, 2 seconds after you sign your name, it's get out of here, you bum. But for at least that period of time, you're the king. Because you're in there with a checkbook, and they want you to put your name on one of those little rectangular squares and hand it to them. I love buying cars.
Well, you're keeping up with the Joneses.
Well, that's part of what it is. And look, everybody's got their thing. Some people collect Hummel figures. You know, everybody's got a thing that they're into. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. It's just that when it becomes obsessive to the point where we're buying so much crap and we're working 24 hours a day and we're missing out on life in general just so that we can have stuff, then I don't think that that's really a healthy use of your time.
Is having a Jaguar having stuff?
Well, not necessarily. If you can afford the Jaguar and it's not coming at a cost. In other words, if you're missing your kid's T-ball, if you're missing your kid's recitals, if you haven't seen your wife in 3 months and you're working just so you can have the Jaguar, then I think there is something wrong with that picture. But if you're able to afford that stuff and still have a quality of life, then everything, there's nothing wrong with that.
Just write the check.
Yeah. All right, Larry.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye. Let's go out and say hello to Gina, who's a first-time caller. Gina, good morning. How are you?
Hi, good morning. How are you?
Good. Thanks so much for calling today.
It's my pleasure. I just want to tell you I've been listening to you since the elections, and I look forward to 2 o'clock in the morning, and somehow I just wake up, and I hear "Fly Away," and I hear the theme song, and then I just really enjoy your taste in music. I'm always fascinated that you can remember all these facts. It just fascinates me.
Well, sometimes I just make them up.
Which is great, too. I believe everything you say.
Hey, by the way, last night we had a caller who was talking about Paige Cavanaugh, who's a local piano player and a great talent. He's a friend of Bobby Troop's, who wrote Route 66.
Right.
And she requested Three Little Bears that Bobby Troop wrote, and Paige, it's really a standard of Paige's act. I brought it in tonight, and we're going to hear that, I think, next hour.
If you get a chance, would you bring in, and I don't know who, I know a few people did Satin Doll.
Oh, yeah, it's a great song.
It's one of my very favorites.
It's a beautiful, beautiful song.
I love it so much.
Yeah.
I'm 10 years older than you are.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I'm heading with this comment of being 10 years older.
Mm-hmm.
After I hit 50, and now I'm 53, I think what happened is that a lot of things that I thought were really important became very unimportant, and I prioritized differently. And I don't have that pressure that used to be on me, because I'm from New York, too.
Mm-hmm.
And things changed, and I don't run myself the same way. And that ATM card would be number one on my list. And I have a suggestion for you, that like a little recommendation, not really a suggestion. You know, there are a lot of people who get their bachelor's and their master's degrees, and they need internships.
Mm-hmm.
And they're very happy to work for people who are either writers or whatever they're doing. It's in their field, and you know, they generally don't really do it for the money. They do it for the experience, and maybe that's really what you could use as somebody to help you.
Well, I've thought about that and even mentioned it one night on the air, and did get a couple of people who sent resumes and inquiries about it. But you know, I tell you, I have a hard time with the internship idea, because to me, it's basically you're asking someone to work for free, and there's just something inherently creepy about that. I mean, yes, I know that especially out here, because I'm a writer, I do the radio. There's a lot of people who are in film school or in, you know, communications departments that would probably love to do an internship. It's good for the resume. But on the other hand, what I need is basically a gopher. I need somebody who will go pick up the laundry. And, you know, that has nothing to do with advancing your career in the communications industry. And the bottom line is, I don't want to ask somebody to do that for nothing. When I'm in a position to pay someone to do it, then I'll get an assistant. But
right.
You know, other than that, I just think a lot.
You can't write a paper on picking up the laundry.
No. Although, did you ever see that episode of Seinfeld when Kramer got an assistant? It was a very funny episode. It was very funny.
Anything they did was funny.
Yeah.
One of the greatest shows.
I agree. I think it was a tremendous show. Although, you know, my theory is that about 20 years from now, that show is going to be very dated.
Really?
Because
yeah, it will be.
Because it's so locked into the 90s, where we were in the 1990s. And I think 20 years from now, people are going to be looking at that going, wow, what the hell is this about? It's like watching, to an extent, All in the Family. If you watch All in the Family now, even though some of the episodes are still as brilliant as they ever were, a lot of the episodes are almost archaic, because they're talking about stuff, and they're talking about issues that we just don't care about anymore.
That's true, and it's funny that the Honeymooners aren't in that category.
The Honeymooners, in my opinion, is in the top 5 greatest sitcoms ever made. You know what it is? I actually talked about this years ago in a theater group, that to me, Ralph Cramden and Ed Norton, as played by Jackie Gleason and Art Carney, could have been cast in Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot. Mm-hmm. They are universal characters. It's the Odd Couple is another one. It's a universal. In fact, Neil Simon actually gives an homage in the original play to The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde. The Pigeon sisters in the original are named Gwendolyn and Cecily, which were the women's names in The Importance of Being Earnest, and they are universals. But a lot of the shows that are on the air are locked, and there's no reason for them not to be. They're on right now, and it's for immediate consumption. It's like listening. Can you imagine listening to tapes of this show even 3 weeks from now? You know, we're going to be talking about, you know, what went on in Quebec during the conference on the free trade, or we'll be talking about an issue that's in today's paper, that horrible crime yesterday in downtown L.A. Well, 3 weeks from now, that's not exactly going to be a topic that anybody cares about.
But it's history.
It is history. It's contemporaneous history, I guess, commentary on it. But that's why the best sitcoms, in my opinion, or let's say the ones that have shelf life, like The Honeymooners, are dealing with universal themes. Yeah. And some of the others, Seinfeld, it was absolutely perfect. It tapped into the zeitgeist of urban life in the 90s. I just wonder how well it's going to hold up over time. It makes me laugh, though. I'll tell you that. When I have the opportunity to see it, it almost always makes me laugh.
Well, I think this radio show can break new ground. I think that there's a lot of people who are out of work, and I think it'd be very interesting if we had a group of people who, on the day, remember the day that you moved and it was raining?
Oh yeah.
And I felt really bad. It was a Friday night. Saturday morning, I had something to do, and you were talking about how you were going to have to move in the rain by yourself, and I could see. I couldn't picture anything except this poor guy holding an umbrella, pushing a chair with an old couch, trying to get all his stuff from one office to another. And since we're boiled owls up in the middle of the night, I think that we could be a troop that would help you out.
Well, we are a troop. We're a troop.
We're a tribe.
And we got
Doug McIntyre tribe.
And hopefully we won't get voted off the island. Did you watch that dumb show today, by the way?
No, I was in school.
What are you going to school for?
Psychology.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be useful, especially in this city.
Yeah, I don't know exactly which direction I'm going to go in, but I really enjoy it so much. Going back to school was one of the best things I ever did.
You're going to end up as Dr. Gina on the airwaves.
No, I don't know about that. I don't know about that, but it's certainly helping me a lot in my life. So.
Well, that's great. Gina, thanks so much for the call. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay,
it was great to talk to
and
you.
call me anytime you want.
Oh, thanks a lot.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, folks, we're going to stop for a little news, and when we come back, we'll talk to Gil out in L.A., and we got some lines open. 1-800-222-KABC. Let's get into it, folks. Whatever you want to talk about is fair game. I'll bring some new stuff up at the top of the hour, and we'll fold that into the mix. And, of course, as always, we'll take your calls on anything that's on your mind. 1-800-222-KABC. This is Red Eye Radio, Flight 790, right here on Talk Radio 790 KABC.
It all happens right now.
LAX Tower, this is KABC Red Eye Flight 790 at Bravo. Permission for taxi to take off runway 27 with information, over.
KABC Flight 790, permission to taxi to runway 27 via Bravo to Charlie. Hold at the line, over.
Roger, 790, over.
KABC 790, cleared for takeoff, over.
Roger, 790, over.
Come fly with me, let's fly away. If you can use some exotic booze, there's a bar in far Bombay. Come fly with me, let's fly away. Come fly with me, let's float down to Peru. In Llama Land.
All right, we're flying now. It is 4:06 in the a.m. I'm Doug McIntyre, your pilot for Red Eye Radio, Flight 790, right here at Talk Radio 790 KABC. Our number is 1-800-222-KABC. That number again is 1-800-222-KABC. We got 3 lines open, folks. Lots of time to talk. We go till 6 in the morning, which means we have 2 hours left until Dave and Amy come along. So go to the phones. We'll talk to you about everything and anything you want to get into. And we're going to talk to Gil, Pat, and Daniel in just a few seconds. I want to throw a couple of other stories into the mix. You know, we're finding out more details about this gunman who hijacked the bus yesterday and caused that deadly crash while fleeing police. He was fleeing police after shooting a black man in an apparent hate crime, police said on Thursday. Carlos Garcia, who is an Hispanic man, allegedly shot and critically wounded the man after telling him, quote, he did not like black men associating with Hispanic women, according to a police statement. Quote, hatred and prejudice apparently sparked the shooting, Detective Dennis English said at a news conference. He declined to provide other details. Garcia, 33, was tackled by a half dozen officers after he jumped through the shattered windshield of the bus, ran around a corner, and tried to commandeer a parked car, police said. Officers shot at him as he fled the bus but missed. He was booked for investigation of murder and treated for minor injuries received in the crash. Of course, the bus driver is in terrible shape. The man he shot is in terrible shape, and he killed this poor woman, Guadalupe Arevalos, Arevalos. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. I'm sure I'm not. She died instantly when the bus plowed into her minivan. Anyway, apparently this guy, he shot a 35-year-old African-American man named Anthony Lewis, who remains hospitalized in critical condition with wounds to his chest and abdomen. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is we've talked about hate crimes many, many times on this show, and my theory being that if you want to pass hate crimes laws, go ahead, but they're not going to stop anything. They might, on the upside, give prosecutors one more tool in which to prosecute horrible people. And in this case, Carlos Garcia certainly falls into the category of a horrible person, somebody who would shoot somebody point blank for no other reason other than the fact that he was, a black man apparently either dating or with an Hispanic woman. And that's the reason that he shot this guy and then causes all this mayhem, killing this poor woman. Horrible. Killing a Hispanic woman, by the way. Well done, you jerk. But, of course, the charge here is attempted murder. He shot a man. The reasons why he shot him, to me, are almost irrelevant. Does it matter that he shot him for that reason or that he wanted his wallet or watch? that he looked at them wrong. So, the hate crime laws, fine. I don't object to them. It's just that I think that if we're passing them with the idea that it's going to change anything, I think we're fooling ourselves. But this is a textbook case. If ever there was an instance of a hate crime, like, those evil slugs down in Texas who dragged James Byrd to his death, that's clearly an example of a hate crime. They picked a guy just because he was black and chained him to the back of a pickup truck and dragged him for a couple of miles. Horrific. Well, here's another case. He shot this man for no other reason than he was black with an Hispanic woman. Well, that certainly falls into the category of hate crime under the way we've defined it. So maybe you've got some thoughts on that. Here's another story. The United States, a vocal critic of human rights records of China and Cuba, lost its seat Thursday on the top UN rights body for the first time since the commission was established in 1947. The U.S. ouster comes the same day Sudan and several other nations with poor track records on human rights were elected to the panel. Diplomats gave various reasons for the U.S. loss, including the current absence of a U.S. ambassador at the World Organization and a retaliation for frequent American criticism of rights abuses in other countries. In voting for spots on the 53-member UN Human Rights Commission, the United States was edged out by 3 European countries, a loss that means the United States will not be able to vote for at least a year on commission resolutions. Eleanor Roosevelt, the late U.S. First Lady and human rights advocate, was the commission's first chairperson, and the United States has traditionally played a very active role in its debates. In recent years, it has been in the forefront of efforts to condemn human rights abuses in Cuba, China, and other countries. The Commission usually meets in Geneva and makes recommendations on the protection and promotion of human rights to the General Assembly of the Security Council. In the balloting at the UN headquarters in New York, France got 52 votes, Austria 41 votes, Sweden 32 votes, and the United States 29 votes. But I'll tell you something, folks. When countries like the Sudan, Uganda, Sierra Leone, and Togo are on the UN Commission on Human Rights, and we're not, the UN could go screw itself. The Sudan is a horrible place to live, horrible to its people. State-sponsored famine, slavery is going on in the Sudan. And they're on the UN Commission on Human Rights, and we're not? We really have. The UN is one of those organizations, frankly, that is, a great idea in theory. A great idea in theory, but I'll tell you something. This is just disgusting. It's really just, it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. The Sudan is on the UN Commission on Civil Rights. That's like making Rafael Perez the chairperson of police reform for the LAPD. It's absolutely absurd. And we're paying for this? I'll tell you, President Bush should tell them to go screw themselves. He really should. We weren't paying our dues for a long time because they owed us, especially New York City, so much money. They cost New York City a fortune. These diplomats park anywhere, triple park, they've got diplomatic immunity. So we finally paid up our dues, and they reward us by kicking us off the UN Commission on Human Rights and replace us with the Sudan. It's absolutely absurd. 1-800-222-KABC. I'm Doug McIntyre. 3 lines open. Go to the phones, folks. And let's go out and say hello to Gil. Gil, good morning. How are you?
Morning, Doug.
How are you, sir?
Oh, boy, I'm looking forward to the 17th of May when all of you talk show hosts have this. Is it going to be like a marathon, 12 hours of straight-through talk show? Or?
I really don't know what the schedule is on that. I've actually got to call tomorrow and talk to Eric Stanger or Eric Braverman and find out what they want in terms of this. What you're referring to is the Battle of the Talk Show Hosts, where the plan is we're going to bring in all the KABC talk show hosts and sort of have a roundtable going on all day to talk about the Timothy McVeigh execution. And the thing that I don't understand what the counter argument is. I mean, what is the counter argument, that he shouldn't be put to death? I mean, I'm sure Gloria Allred obviously is going to be very anti-death penalty. Ira Fistell is anti-death penalty. Brian Whitman is anti-death penalty. I don't really know what, Al Rantel is pro-death penalty, and I'm sure that Larry Elder is. Mr. KBC may be opposed to it. So I don't know, if the discussion is going to be death penalty, then I guess there can be good, debate over the topic. But as far as McVeigh is concerned, I think that he's the wrong guy to be the focus of a debate on the death penalty. Or maybe he's the perfect guy because he is so heinous. Maybe he is the perfect guy to have the debate over the death penalty because he is clearly such a wretched, despicable human being that, those people who feel that the death penalty is morally wrong would argue that even a guy like McVeigh should not be executed by the state. Of course, my opinion is very different. A guy like McVeigh should definitely be executed by the state. To me, it's morally abhorrent to think that Timothy McVeigh can keep his life after having taken 269 lives. But that's, we'll have the debate.
Well, I like to see people that have been past talk show hosts on KBC be not the subject matter, but just to have all 30 of you or whatever together in a 12-hour marathon.
Oh, listen, if you want to do that, go to Window B at the unemployment office. It's filled with talk show hosts who are debating things. I've been down there myself, explaining the G7 summit to the guy who lost his job, at a .com. There's great debates going on at the unemployment office.
Because I was thinking, like, your day job, is that did you have to travel through heavily congested traffic to and from this day job?
No, not normally.
Oh, well, great then. You got a good night and day job.
Well, the night job this job is great for traffic. At 1 in the morning, there's no traffic. There's some hookers you got to dodge, but other than that, it's clear sailing.
Oh, boy.
Hey, listen, Gil, I got to take a break. Hang on, will you?
Okay, I'll hang.
Okay, we'll come right back to you. All right, we'll finish up with Gil. We also have Pat wants to talk a little opera with us. We got Daniel in Santa Clarita. He used to be an actor and was known in India. We'll find out what that's about. And there's 3 lines open, folks. Go to the phones. We'll talk to you about anything you want to get into. Do you have any thoughts about the UN? Has the UN done anything that's of value? I guess so. They've done some famine relief work. They've done some things that are of value. But this is absurd. We got kicked off and the Sudan is on. Oh, boy. 1-800-222-KABC. I'm Doug McIntyre. This is Red Eye Radio, Flight 790. Right here on Talk Radio 790 KBC. Here's Steve Kelly.
Good morning, Doug. Good morning, everybody. Freeways are looking pretty good right now. We only have a couple problems to mention. First one would be in Montclair, 10 eastbound at Central. Vehicle fire now clearing. Glen Avon, 60 westbound at Pyrite. We've got a wreck involving 2 cars and a rig. The vehicle is at the center divider. The other vehicle's now cleared to the right shoulder.
From Santa Barbara to San Diego, Talk Radio 790 KABC, the voice of Southern California. Woohoo!
Another bride, another groom, another funny honeymoon, another season, and that's the reason for making whoopee.
Whoopee! It's Friday. Red Eye Radio, Flight 790, right here on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's 4:20 in the AM. We fly till 6 when Dave and Amy come along. 1-800-222-KABC. 2 lines open, folks. Climb on board. We'll talk to you about whatever you want to get into. Everything's fair game. I'm going to look at these metal folding chairs if I'm going to get it whacked on. And by the way, I've seen Mr. KBC. And if he wants to tag team me, I'll take my chances with Mr. KBC any day. Now, it's Gloria that I'm cutting. I'm staying away from Gloria, man. Whew, boy. I don't want her coming anywhere near me with anything. She's dangerous, that woman. Anyway, I guess May 17th, I got some questions to ask about that. I've never participated in one of those before. I did a roundtable one night on the election. So we'll have to find out what the battle of the talk show hosts are. I'll tell you right now, I am going to be in no shape to be involved in a 12-hour battle of the talk show hosts. I get out of here at 6. That thing starts at 9, and I got to be back here on the air at 2. What have I gotten myself into? Oh, boy, but I'm in the promo, so I guess that means I must be here. 1-800-222-KABC. We're talking with Gil. Gil, good morning. Thanks for holding.
Doug, you know about when you bought your house in Burbank in '86?
Yeah.
I moved into Burbank around that particular. I don't live there now, but I spent 3 of the smoggiest years of my life in Burbank. You know, and then when the Lockheed left, I said, well, the media industry is going to keep this town going. And sure enough, Johnny Carson's show was there at NBC on Alameda, and they kept the economy going.
Well, I'll tell you, the city of Burbank did a tremendous job. When Lockheed moved to Marietta, Georgia, it was a devastating blow to the economy. I mean, they've been there for many, many years, and it was an enormous employer, an enormous tax base for the city of Burbank. But the city, in one of these rare cases of city government actually getting their act together, the city of Burbank is a much, much better place to live today than it was in the early 80s.
Yeah.
The air's cleaner, number one, as it is all over. And there's more restaurants, there's places to go out at night. It's not the sleepy little, closes at 6 town that it used to be.
Well, I like the Toluca Lake wasn't that far away from Burbank, North Hollywood.
Well, half of Toluca Lake is Burbank. It's true. I mean, Toluca Lake is half in Burbank and half in North Hollywood.
And Bob Hope still lives in Toluca Lake.
Yeah, although these days he's spending more and more time down in Palm Springs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, his house is still there, still on the Lakeside Country Club fairway. He's been there for many, many years.
Yeah, because, getting back to I keep jumping around, but on this 17th of May, your ratings should go up at least 5 arbitrary, or whatever you call that rating service.
Arbitrary. That's what I call it. We're the 39th talk show host, the 39th most popular talk show host in L.A. radio. That's a little different than when I was saying a few weeks ago, we're the #1 overnight show. Right now, I think airport radio is beating us, but, I don't know what to say about that.
Well, I was thinking about your program manager. I don't know if this is his or her idea, but it was a great idea to have this even though it's hard on maybe your time constraints, to get everybody together to really duke it out.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, have a pleasant rest of the day anyway.
Okay, Gil, thanks for calling. We'll talk to you again.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. That was Gil. Let's go out to Pat in L.A. Pat wants to talk a little opera. Pat, how are you?
Oh, I'm fine.
Now, do you want to talk opera or do you want to talk Oprah?
Well, I think we say opera here. I don't know in Italian. Your O's are O's, and your A's are A's, and your I's are E's, and your U's are O's, and it might be opera in Italy. I don't know, but we all say opera here.
Okay, what would you like to get into?
Anyway, remember some woman had called you and wanted to know what had happened to all of the young opera singers.
Well, she claimed that there were none.
Well, there certainly are. They had, I think it was last week or the week before on the radio, they had every year they have a contest from the Met.
Mm-hmm.
And opera singers are young people, my Lord. They're better than ever, and they can act now.
Well, I agree. Obviously, opera is not an area of the arts that I'm particularly well versed. I mean, the only opera I know is El Trovador, and that's from Night at the Opera with the Marx Brothers, which I've seen 1,000 times. But I do know that there are a tremendous number of young and brilliantly talented opera singers out there, and that caller, I think it was Mary from Studio City, was just really down on American culture and the arts in America, and it's just such an absurd statement. The arts are alive and well in America. It's just that if you look at TV, you would think that the arts are dead. But if you look around at what's going on in almost every city in the country, there's a great deal of artistic achievement going on in America. I don't know what she was talking about.
And KCET, every now and then they'll put on. I saw La Boheme, and it was updated, 100 years from the time that it was supposed to take place.
Mm-hmm.
And some wonderful, two wonderful young men from Mexico sang the part, the main male lead.
Well, this is interesting, too, in talking about classical music. Yeah. The musicians today are so better trained than they were in the times of even Mozart, when Mozart was writing the music.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, today's orchestras play the music better than they were ever played in the time of Mozart.
I know. But I want to take the subject out of McVeigh.
Okay.
I'm not against the death penalty, but in his case, I think death is too good for him.
I'm with you on that.
Papillon.
Yes.
They ought to put him in solitary confinement, let him down there and eat a few insects and stuff, and leave him there for life, and no one ever to talk to him, no TV, no nothing. Just let him suffer.
Well, you know, this has been brought up. McVeigh wants to die, so therefore, why are we letting him? I don't think that he should. You know, my bigger concern about Tim McVeigh's execution is that, frankly, we're going to turn him into a martyr.
My feelings exactly.
The people who are hate the U.S. government and think that the black helicopters, you know, the Art Bell crowd, you know, these people who are suspicious and paranoid about everything, they're going to turn Tim McVeigh into a martyr. They really are.
I know.
And
yes, it's too good for him.
And the other thing is that, like Zan, from our caller Zan from Van Nuys, who has been following this Oklahoma City case and has serious doubts that we've gotten the full story, and he may very well be right. There may have been a lot more people involved in this. Well, McVeigh won't give up any names. He might, if he was sitting in his can in the slammer for 20 years, he may start eventually to tell the full story. If we execute him, he takes those secrets with him to the grave. And that does bother me, because I'll tell you, if there are other people who are involved in the Oklahoma City bombing, and we're not we haven't caught them, we're not prosecuting them, that's an atrocity. These people killed 269.
Horrendous.
Yes, and if McVeigh gets to take those names with him to the grave, I think that's not in the American names. By all means, fry his ass, because he's a horrible person.
But don't give him a nice injection.
Well, you know, again, as George Carlin says, the worst part about the lethal injection is that they're putting alcohol with a cotton swab on his arm. Why? So he doesn't get an infection?
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane. Hey, Pat, thanks so much for the call.
Okay, well, I'll talk to you maybe next week.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Dan Clarita, Daniel, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm pretty good. What I'd like to ask you about, during World War II, I was stationed in the Admiralty Islands.
Mm-hmm.
And an actor came in by the name of Sabu.
Yes.
He made his first picture, I believe, was The Elephant Boy.
Yes, he was. He made a lot of.
In the Army Air Forces, and he was an aerial gunner.
Uh-huh.
And the officers, the first night, were nice to him. They invited him to the officers' club. He was an enlisted man. But after the war, I never heard of him again.
Well, he made. I'm not an expert on the oeuvre of Sabu. Of Sabu's work. But if you hang on a second, I'm going to Amazon.com right now, and I'm telling you, we'll be able to find Sabu movies. Because I do remember that Sabu, he was a character actor, an ethnic actor, and he did a lot of jungle movies and things like that.
Right.
And he certainly wasn't what you would call a big star. I don't think you can go down to the Chinese theater in Hollywood and find Sabu's footprints.
But he was a celebrity over during the war.
Sure.
Coming over and. And he was a big bragger.
Okay, he was in The Thief of Baghdad in 1940.
Mm-hmm.
He was in Jungle Book in 1942. He was in The Arabian Nights in 1942.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess he did most of his work. Those are the only three. A Scene from the Sea, 1992, that came out in DVD, so I don't know what that's about. But basically, he made his career mostly in the early 40s.
After World War II, I never heard of him again.
Yeah.
And there's another thing I want to state. I watch the History Channel a lot. I'm visually impaired, so I have to listen. And I can't understand. They talk about. I was in the war in the Pacific. And that's all you ever hear is what the Navy and the Marines done.
Mm-hmm.
There was Army units out there. There was 3 different Air Forces out there. There was the 7th Air Force, the 5th Air Force, and the 13th Air Force.
Well, and that was all Army Air Corps. Of course, there wasn't a separate service then. The Air Force was part of the Army.
We were Army.
Yeah. It was
all Army Air Force.
Right. The Air Force wasn't a separate branch.
But the impression they're giving the people is the only people that were out there was the United States Navy and the United States Marines. That's all you ever hear about.
Well, that's true.
And
of course,
I don't know who's writing the books about history.
Of course, in the European theater, You rarely hear about the Marines.
I don't think there was any Marines in the European theater.
Well, I bet you there were. You just don't hear about them.
Marine units?
I bet you.
Never heard of a Marine unit in the invasion of Normandy or any of the
it would have seemed.
war.
It would seem